Gray will fire. It's hit.
Female athletics, especially on the basketball level, has grown so much, but a lot of it is due to AAU basketball, and that's the basketball that's played outside of the high schools. During our time, it was only high school. It was only high school that would give you an opportunity to play basketball on another level. Hi, I'm Shiela Wooten. I was born and raised in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and currently I am the athletic director at Bloomfield College. Been here for 29 years. So my parents were both from North Carolina and would go to Atlantic City in the summers during their vacation to work, and so they migrated after high school to Atlantic City, and so I grew up in Atlantic City. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and we had a modest upbringing because my parents had only completed high school. My high school experience, I would say, was a good high school experience, and it was there that I discovered that I happened to be pretty athletic and decided to play high school basketball. Well, when I played high school basketball, first of all, years ago they did not have what you call the AAU circuit right now, and there weren't as many opportunities for girls ball. At one point, girls basketball was only played on the half court. I was lucky enough to be able to play on the full court. Vivian Stringer, at the time when I was in high school, was a coach. It was one of the first black female coaches at Cheney University at that time. And so I remember our high school coach would take us over and watch some of the teams practice, and we were lucky enough to have that opportunity to see how basketball was evolving for female athletes. Some years ago, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, our team was inducted into the Atlantic City Hall of Fame for being the first girls basketball team to win a state championship. Children-wise, and the first to go to college, first generational college student on my mother's side and actually on my dad's side. So both of my parents are the oldest children of 8 on each side. And so college initially was not something that I thought that I wanted to do. So I was recruited by a couple of colleges to play ball in Virginia. I was recruited by St. Joseph's in Pennsylvania, outside of Philly, and my coach actually was very instrumental because of my parents' work schedule and having other children and taking me to visit different schools. I was recruited by Iona, and then at the time Uppsala, which was right in East Orange down the street from Bloomfield, and Bloomfield were also recruiting me. So we had gone to visit quite a few schools between my mom and my coach. And when we came to Bloomfield, my mother felt that it was something very special here at Bloomfield College.
As a player, back then, I will say this, women's basketball was much, much different. You know, collegiate women's basketball was much different than what it is today. But Shiela was a player that is basically one that would be able to compete in today's game as well. Her competitiveness, her toughness, her ability as an offensive player.
I was very blessed to have a very good team to play with, and at Bloomfield, actually, in terms of basketball, I was the first female to score 1,000 points, and I think I ended my career with about 1,890 points. I was the first female to grab 1,000 rebounds. I ended up my career with about 1,100 rebounds.
As a player, back then, without any question, was probably one of the best players that I've ever seen play.
While I was here, after I graduated from Bloomfield, I started grad school, and I was an RA when I was a student on campus. I also became an RD, and then I also worked in the EOF program as a counselor for 3 years. Also worked for a program called Inroads after I finally left Bloomfield. And when I worked at Inroads for a year, I was asked to come back to Bloomfield to coach basketball as an assistant, and that's what I did. And while coaching, I think that's when I started to find that athletics was really something that I wanted to do full-time or long-term versus just being a school counselor. I think with athletics, it gives you the best of both worlds. You can do that counseling along with also having your love for sports. A position opened up for assistant athletic director / volleyball coach at Bloomfield, and at the time the athletic director, Mr. Al Restano, who I owe my career to be honest with you, said to me, you know, you should apply. And I'm like, I'm not really experienced enough. And he said, you don't have to be. You are a natural. I think that you'll do a good job for us, and I'll teach you everything you need to know.
The positives from that standpoint, and her as an administrator, knowing and understanding the values that are necessary to have a successful program from a recruiting standpoint. She coached volleyball and had outstanding programs throughout her tenure as a coach. And again, with the qualities that she exhibited as a player, she exhibited those same qualities as a coach and as an administrator, and that is the toughness, the structure, you know, the organization. You know, all the qualities that you need to have a program be successful. I believe and I recall that she had all of those things in place.
More importantly, I changed, I think, a lot of student athletes' lives during that time, because I had some of the best young ladies who are now top accountants, nurses, teachers, working in the health professions, though that experience was probably the most valuable experience, being a coach and changing young student athletes' lives. And so after Mr. Restano retired, I did not think I was going to get the director's position, and so I had taken a position at NJIT where I coached volleyball. I was assistant athletic director at NJIT for a short spell, and then I changed my mind and applied for the position to be able to go back and give to my alma mater. I love Bloomfield College. It's been a huge part of my life, and so I was very lucky enough at the time that Bob Essler, who was the vice president for finance and administration, he hired me back to be director of athletics, and so here I am 29 years later. I had gone to my first NCAA convention, and when I went to the convention, it's the national convention of all NCAA institutions, Division I, II, and III, and that's when you look around and you say, oh my God, I'm one of the few minorities. I don't look at it as something of just being the color of my skin. I feel like I try very hard to do the best job that I can. I've always prided our department on being fair, not just for men, but for females. And during the time when I first started, that was probably the downfall of a lot of athletic departments. They didn't care as much for female athletics as they did for the male sports.
Hodges to get it in. Angel for the win!
Well, I think it may not be necessarily a matter of respect. It's just more that men's basketball is more popular. Women's basketball's popularity has taken off. Unfortunately, people that know basketball and versus those that don't know basketball, women's basketball is more of a more disciplined game. It's probably a little slower, and that may be the reason, as well as men's basketball can be a tad bit more exciting because of men being able to dunk the ball and move at a much faster pace. Well, women that play professional sports, especially in the WNBA, they don't get paid nearly, not even a tenth of what men make in the NBA.
It does surprise me a little. It's a little less than I thought they would be making in the WNBA, but you have to consider what is that product bringing in. You know, how many people are going in. I've been around WNBA players for a long time, so I've had the idea to know that, you know, it's still a league that struggles to get attendance in. It's going to be difficult unless you get a big time, someone like a Mark Cuban, who puts his money where his mouth is and becomes a WNBA owner that can really make a difference and spread the wealth around.
I think they stay because they love the game. Women don't love the game any differently than men love the game. A gym rat is a gym rat, whether it's a female or a male. And so the opportunity sometimes to do what you love, I think all of our parents raise us to find a profession that you love and be the best that you can be in it. And so I think people who are not athletic don't understand that when people play professional sports, they love it.
So I think the women's game is a super game, but it still needs to take another step for people to enjoy it as much as the men's tournament.